trying to figure all this out, all this technology. And all right, here we go. Normally I start with good morning, good morning, good morning, but it is not morning matters. It is cosmic matters on this Sunday morning. And thank you all. Let me make sure I'm up everywhere properly. Thank you for taking the time to join me today on this Matters video. I am Matthew Washington. Thank you for the hearts, Miss Spectacular. And I created the This Matters video series to kind of bring you a different perspective on the world we live in. And by doing so, hope to entertain your brain for a little bit by having you contemplate some things that are not in people's everyday normal thought processes. So we all have our own beliefs about who we are, about God, about the universe, about the cosmos. And those beliefs come from, people's personal experiences that we've encountered, the education that we have, where we live. And the objective of Cosmic Matters is not to change your mind. It's not to convert you to thinking the way I think. But the idea is to, as I said, to entertain your brain, to give you just a different perspective, and so, I decided to do, I was going to do a bunch of different podcasts. I'm going to be doing This Matters podcast, which will be more about wealth building and Tesla and the future and all that other stuff that I like to talk about. But the Cosmic Matters, we just put in, we just talk about philosophy and science. And one of the things that I believe in, one of the things that I look for is I want to believe as many truths as I possibly can. And one of the things I look for as far as my philosophy or my worldview is, does that worldview match what we see, what's out there? And science, people think of science, like I've had discussions with religious people, and they say things like, well, science is your God or whatever. And science is just religion was really the first science. It's like people didn't understand what was going on. It would rain sometimes. They would have famine. The sky there would be thunder and lightning. And humans, we were scared, but we like to know. We like to come up with answers. We like to give. We don't like saying we don't know. So we make up stuff, right? So there was back. I imagine when humans were just living in the savannah, trying to survive, and all these scary things were going on. Then we had a lot more gods. There was God of thunder, there was God of plague, there was God of death, there was a God of, we didn't understand anything. And then as our understandings of things became more clear, we eliminated some of those gods, some of those explanations, some of those supernatural explanations. And we said, okay, well, there's not Apollo isn't carrying the sun across the sky. It's, we understand that it took us a little while to figure out. Some of us still haven't figured out that that the Earth is just a globe and it's spinning, and the sun is in the sky. That always reminds me of a story about Socrates, and Socrates is talking to his one of his students, and he says to his students, whatever the student's name was, why do you think so many people think that the Earth is in the center of the universe, and that the sun travels across the sky? And why does, as far as that goes, like, why do they think that that's the way it works? Like the sun is going, and the people says, well, because that's what it looks like. It looks like the sun comes up in the east and it sets in the west, and it's going around the Earth. And Socrates says to the pupil, well, what would it look like if the sun was in the center of the universe and Earth was just spinning around in a circle? And of course, we know it would look exactly like it looks right now, right? But we tend to want to put ourselves as the center of importance. And so therefore, everything else is going around us, as far as that works out. And so the concept of what we're talking about today is not to change what you believe, but it's just to have you say, okay, well, here's something different. Here's something that I might not have thought of before. And this is why we talk about a lot of Alan Watts in here, and this is why we talk about and a lot of science stuff. So, and I try to match what I say up to the cosmos. So if you haven't seen some of the past podcasts we did my episode 3 was, Are We Living in a Black Hole? And that's one of my favorite, I guess, hypotheses about the universe, that we are living in a black hole. And then, but I like that thought process, but then also I like the fact, and if you go back and you watch that episode, I like that right now, as I've done more looking into physicists, what physicists actually say, people who study black holes and who do the math on these types of things, there's a bunch of evidence that we are living in a black hole. And a lot of these philosophical ideas and concepts that I like to talk about, I like to go and then find the science and see, does this match up? Because science, this is the point I was kind of getting at, is just it's just a testing. It's just a method. It's not like it's believable because it works. Hey, thank you, everyone. Oh, hey, what's up? Jewish. Sorry, I got my setup kind of weird today. So if I start looking over here, it's because I'm looking at the TikTok live here. And Jewish is one of my I'm not jogging right now. So but I appreciate the love. So so the concept of what science is, it's just a method. It's just a methodology. It's a way of coming to truth. And just as religion used to be, religion was like, this was the truth. But as we learned more, as we discovered more, we found out that, hey, it's people actually can have schizophrenia there, and putting leeches on them is not going to work, or scaring the demons out of them is not working. But this medication works, or this works, and we have a method that works, that discovers truth. And it's not even, and science isn't 100%, because science only works if it's testable and it's repeatable, right? So something that happens like once, like right now, there's a big, did I bring water? Oh, of course I don't have water. Oh yeah, no, I do have water. Look at me, I'm smart. All right, drink some water. But there's this big thing that's going on right now with I guess people are really worried about this E1A, or I forget the name of it. This basically, there's something coming from interstellar space that's entered our solar system, right? And we haven't had a lot of experiences with this. So of course, when something's new, the immediate what people immediately do is like, oh, it's aliens, right? Oh, aliens. We've never seen it. The trajectory that it's on, it's weird. It's doing weird things. Well, and then people look at the science. The science is like, oh, we don't know what this is. And so people are like, oh, conspiracy theory. They do know what it is. It's obviously aliens. And the aliens are going to be the same size as us, and they're going to look like us. They'll be bipedal and have 2 eyes, and they'll look maybe green, or they'll look a little different, but it's got to be aliens. And so because we like to jump to conclusions. We like to think that the aliens would be our size, and that's what's got to happen. That's what got. Oh, thank you so much, Jewish. I appreciate. I really do appreciate you. I do. That was awesome. She just tapped my screen about 1 million times, and Jewish tapping my things are always happiness. So we're gonna have to have you on one day, and so the point being is, so because this thing has come from interstellar space, and we've only observed, I think, one other thing that's come from interstellar space, which was the that thing they called the I forget. That just looked weird, me doing that. The thing that they named, it was like Hawaiian name that they named it, this oblong object that came out from interstellar space, was the last time something like this came. And so science doesn't know what to say. So what happens is the scientists are going to, basically the physicists, they're just going to be like, yeah, we don't know what it is. Now that makes people uncomfortable, but it's, I remember Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about, he used to say, he would say like it's called a UFO because the people forget what the U stands for, and the U stands for unidentified. So if it's unidentified, you can't call it aliens. That's identifying it. You see, like when you see a UFO, it's an unidentified flying object. So by you saying, well, that's aliens, well, there's a lot of stuff that we just don't know, and it's better to say we don't know until we do know, as opposed to just making stuff up, just being like, well, it's going to be this or it's got to be that, or coming up with wild accusations. God did it, or whatever. And so like I said, I like one of the things I heard from the Dalai Lama once. They asked the Dalai Lama, he was in an interview, and they said, what happens if the things that you believe don't line up with a scientific proof, or when science finds something about space or time or whatever? What if what you believe doesn't line up with the scientific method? And the Dalai Lama said, well, then we'll just change what we believe. So, which is nice. That's a good way to, I like that. Which is why I prefer Buddhism, because they're just they're amicable to saying, look, science is just a way that we examine the earth, or examine the world, examine the universe, and it's always changing. I constantly have this conversation with people who, and why I don't use the word theory. People will say things like, oh, I have a theory. Like they don't understand the difference between like the colloquial use of the word theory versus like a scientific theory. Some people are like, I have a theory, the Jets are going to lose today. That's not a theory. That's not a scientific theory. That's just you making a guess. A theory in science is a explanation of facts, right? So that's why we have gravitational theory and germ theory and evolutionary theory. So these things actually happen, and then the theory explains it, right? So like gravity is not, so like people, when they hear like a theory, they go, oh, evolution, that's just the theory. They think that means like that's like a best guess. And no, evolution is a fact. The theory of natural selection based upon genetic mutation is the explanation of the facts of evolution. Now, before I piss off the people who don't believe in evolution, people believe, well, I guess there's people who don't even believe in gravity anymore, right? So, but like gravitational theory, gravity is a fact. That's, we take the pencil, we drop it, that happened, right? Gravitational theory is an explanation of why the pencil falls to the ground. And it's just, when you have two masses, the larger mass will have more of an attraction, dips space-time, it affects space-time more, and that the smaller object will fall towards the larger object. That's gravitational theory. It's explanation. So theories are not guesses. They're not, maybes or whatever. Theories are like the highest level of knowledge that we can get, because this pencil that keeps falling, and I keep slamming on my table here, if it changed, if for some reason the pencil, I dropped it and the pencil like floated away instead of falling, we wouldn't throw out gravitational theory. We would say, what happened? Right? We'd say that is an odd effect. So that goes against all the evidence that we had before. Like, this is what sometimes when I talk to people who don't believe in evolution, they will show like they'll come up with something, right? And they'll be like, see, this is it. So what you want us to do is take all the evidence that we've had before in the past, throw that out because you found this one thing that's not explained, or that's questionable, or that we have to look into further. And that's not how it works. I don't do that either. So if my pencil floated away, we would say, okay, well, what's going on? Is it made out of something? Is it a special pencil? Is there a big wind going on? Like we would look into that. And but we wouldn't throw out gravitational theory unless we could then reconstruct that, and it would see it was against gravity, which is the same thing that happens with evolution. When we find something that's out of place, that's out of sort, or just like the Big Bang Theory right now, Big Bang Theory came, like, people are like, we didn't throw out Big Bang Theory, but they found these galaxies with the James Webb Telescope. They found these galaxies that were super far away. And I see I have a message. So I'm going to play that in a second. But they're super far away, but they're too developed based upon where they are. Meaning, as the further away we look in the cosmos, the younger things should be, right? So the further away that they, because of the distance, so we can see, we're literally looking into the past every time we look into the sky, and we see all these stars that I have in my picture here. I have, by the way, this is called the Eye of God Nebula, if you're watching on TikTok or on YouTube. So so the point being is, when we're looking into the past. And so what they saw when they saw some of these galaxies is they said, hey, these galaxies are much more mature than they should be based upon how far away they are. Now, what some people did is they said, oh, look, the Big Bang Theory is wrong because they found these galaxies, and now it's proving the Big Bang Theory is wrong. No, that's not. They said, okay, well, here's some evidence, some new evidence. Maybe we don't understand how galaxies form. Maybe we don't, because the evidence for the Big Bang Theory is pretty extensive. So they say, okay, well, here's some new information. Let's see how this works, right? And that is how theories are tested, right? All right, so let me. I got some messages. Let's play a message and see how it works. On if you guys can actually hear these messages. So, Mr. Skitty, let's see what you got to say.
Hello. Yeah, theories of evolution. This is interesting stuff here. And if you go all the way back, there is the theory of Luca, which is the last universal common ancestor of all life on Earth. And it's a theory that the very first protocell, it's the origin of all life. So, trees, lizards, humans, dinosaurs, all are basically descendants from Luca in this theory.
Well, it wouldn't be a theory at this point. That would be a hypothesis, if somebody is proclaiming that. So that hypothesis, actually, I should play the video. I actually watched a really interesting video of someone just explaining, which is weird. Like, we did learn this in school. They do teach us this in school, the scientific method. But the thing that scientists are not good at is communicating to the general public. Like, they're just really good at just doing their job and moving on and just saying, you should figure it out yourself, either be smart or not. So this is why we need people like Brian Cox and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Michio Kaku, and these people in the science field and community to go out and let's see. Wait, okay, let's see. Skitty says, wait, let's see what he said.
Actually, it is a theory. A hypothesis has to be falsifiable. That cannot be falsifiable.
No, theories are explanations of facts. Facts can be falsifiable. So if gravity didn't exist, if things didn't fall to the ground, then that would be a falsifiable thing. The theory of gravity, gravitational theory, explains the actual things that happen. What theories are? They're explanations. They're not. They're explanations of things that happen. And they test the theory, has to be tested through multiple. Like, the reason why evolutionary theory is considered one of the strongest theories that we have is because there are multiple different sciences that match up to the evolutionary tree of life. So, for example, if you were going to measure, let's say, if you wanted to find out the age of a tree, right? And you looked at the tree, and everyone so you look at the tree rings, right? So every year it grows. There should be let's say the tree rings say it's about 200 years old, right? And then you have another someone who, there's a plaque there that says this tree was planted, you know, at the battle of something that happened to be 200 years ago, right? And then you look at some different, you know, historical pictures of someone who say they're the pictures of them planting this tree in this spot. So because you have different modes of looking at this, you would say, okay, the tree's 200 years old. We don't just say, it's not just the tree rings, but it's also the plaque. It's also, we have pictures. And when you have multiple, the more evidence we have, the more we say, okay, that is true knowledge, right? So when we look at, like, say, evolutionary theory, we say, okay, well, you can make a tree of life simply from how a zygote, if you know what a zygote, it's like a fertilized egg, how it replicates, or how it develops. All right. So as the cells multiply, if there's what happens is like a ball of cells, and then there becomes like an indentation. I forget what it's called in biology. I forget. But in like insects, that always becomes like the mouth. But in like every other type of animal, humans, mammals, all of that becomes like, it becomes the anus, right? And then if you continue on, it goes to different developmental levels, and you can make a whole evolutionary tree based upon endocrinology, right? But then you can make another one based upon DNA. You can make another one based upon the fossil record. You can make another one. You can use all these different independent scientific methodologies, and they would all come up with the same. That's why it's like, okay, well, if you do endocrinology, and then you do the fossil record, and then you do DNA sequencing, and you do all independently, you come up with the same evolutionary tree. So that's why people believe, that's why scientists say evolution is true, because if it wasn't, one of these would say something different, but they all say the same thing when we do all different types of scientific work. It comes up with the same tree, right? So, let's see. Well, Rashad, what's going on?
So, hey, Matty Wash, yo, just want to say I like how you didn't overthink it, and you're doing what you're doing. Multi-stream the way you are. You look good, sound good, but there's football on TV, so I got.
Yeah, I hear you. We're done before I get done before football. Not the early game, but I get done before football. And it's funny because I don't know how I got on this side mission here. But I wanted to get to the illusion of time, which is what I want to get to in the Andromeda paradox, which I'm going to play in a couple minutes here. But I'm going to give Skitty some time here. And we'll play some messages.
Another interesting one is how amino acids can be formed in space. And we've also found these amino acids from asteroids that have hit the Earth. We found amino acids that do not correlate to any life on Earth. They could just be naturally forming in cosmic clouds, but not necessarily derived directly from life itself. Just kind of a random mix-up of different chemicals in space.
Yeah, actually, I was just watching Astro Alexandra videos, and they mined was it I don't know, if asteroid, meteor, I don't know, I forget the technical differences between the words, but one of those rocks that are flying around out there, and they landed a probe, and they found all the building blocks for DNA, like, you know, the not RNA, adenine, whatever there's 5, I think, building blocks of DNA, but they found all 4 of those, you know, like the A's and the T's that mix up to make DNA. And they found, as Skitty just said, the amino acids. They found 14 different amino acids that are conform to make proteins that can make DNA and RNA. So, as we've said before in past podcasts here on Cosmic Matters, we're not very special. Life goes on all throughout the universe. The universe is itself alive, is the way I believe, and we are just a manifestation of it, as far as that goes. So one of the things that I was, so let me try to get to the point of today's the point. I love it. By the way, you're never going to get the same podcast here. Sometimes I don't even get to the title or to the subject of the matter, so it is what it is, but I guarantee it'll be interesting. So one of the things I was thinking about, and I actually had a dream about this last night, which is pretty crazy. It's one of the reasons why I actually came up with this topic, and the topic is the illusion of time. And talking about time and space is something that actually, let me, before I get there, before I move along to that spot. So I did want to talk about gravity real quickly, because it's good to bring up gravity, and then I'll get to this time thing, because time and space, pretty much the same thing. I was explaining to a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, actually about a couple of months ago, actually now, we were talking about black holes, which started this whole podcast. And I talked about how in a black hole, which is infinitely small space, right? Less than the Planck space. But with all the matter that's in there, the gravity, what ends up happening is time stops. So not only does space stop there, but time stops there. And because if there is no space, if there's no place to go, if everything is in one spot, a point, when you think about mathematical points, we say, like, there's a point and there's a line and then there's a plane, right? We've learned all that in elementary school, middle school, maybe. But then I always just say, what is a point, right? Well, a point is where the black hole is, which is, it's got no height, no depth, no width, but it's got the mass of, a lot of mass. And so when you get to a point where there's no space, there's no place to go, then time is not necessary, because time is just the measurement of change, right? From one moment to the next. That's what time is. That's what a second is, right? A half a second or millisecond. It's so if there is no change, if there's no place to go, then time stops, right? Now he wasn't understanding this. He's like, well, if I'm watching a black hole, time is still passing. I go, yes, but not if you were in the black hole, right? If you were actually at the spot in the black hole, then time is not moving for you anymore, because there's no passage of time, just like there's no space for anything to happen. Everything happens in one spot, so therefore time does not continue moving. And then another what I thought, when I thought about that, it's like, okay, so nothing can move when there is no space, so time stops. And then I was thinking, well, when else does time stop? Well, time also stops when you're traveling so fast. When you're traveling at the speed of light, time also stops. And the speed of light is the cosmic, speed limit, right? And the reason why it's the speed, there's lots of other things that go at the speed of light. Gravity travels at the speed of light. Neutrinos also travel at the speed of light, as far as I know. But the reason why it's the speed of light is simply what happens is as fast as you can go if you have no mass. Once you've shed all mass, how fast are you able to actually go? And that's light. And light goes at that speed because it doesn't have any mass. So when a photon of light leaves a star, if you when it's created, and it takes millions of years, like these stars that are behind me in the Eye of God Nebula here, when we look up and we see these stars, to the actual photon, even though that these stars are hundreds of millions of years, light years away, and I always like to do perspective. A light year is 5.88 trillion miles, right? That's how far a light year is. A trillion sounds like a billion, sounds like a million, but a trillion is not even close to a million and a billion, right? I always do this every podcast. If you wanted to count to a million by seconds, it would take you 11 days, around 11 days. 11 days is a million seconds. To count to a billion would take you 31 years. right? So that's how much bigger a billion is than a million. And a trillion, you have to add 3 zeros, is 31,000 years. If you want, so it would take you 31,000 years to count to a trillion. That's how big a trillion is. So now you're talking about the speed of light traveling 5.88 trillion miles in a year. That's how fast light goes. Now you're talking about some of these stars being hundreds of thousands of and sometimes millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of light years away from us. It's just insane how far some of these things are. Even if you wanted to just get to the Andromeda galaxy, it's 3 light years, if I remember correctly, 3 light years to get there. So, excuse 3 light years, 300. Wait, now that's pissing me off. I want to say it's either 3 million or 300 million, and I'm not gonna. I hate when I say stuff and I'm don't trust my memory. All right, how far is Andromeda? $2.5, so about 3 million. Okay, so I was not 300 million. So 2.5 million light years. Right, I was getting the 300. So now you have to take 2.5 million and times it by 5.88 trillion miles. And that's how far away this thing is, right? And that's the closest galaxy to us. That's the closest one to us is 2.5 million light years away. But to the star. So now I'm just putting this in perspective for a reason, because to the actual photon that left one of those points of light, those stars that you can see, and you can actually, Andromeda is one of the few galaxies you can actually see with the naked eye. If you go to not where I live, because I live in New York, but if you go somewhere without light pollution, you can actually see it in the sky. It's like a little smudge. But that smudge, it took 2.5 million years for that smudge, the light there, to get to your eye. But to the proton, to the light, to the photon, I want to say, to the photon, it was instant. No time passed at all. So from the second it left Andromeda to the second it got to your eyeball, no time passed at all for that particular photon, right? If you were that piece of light. So this is kind of getting into, again, what is time then? What is this illusion of time that we have? Like, there are certain things, because as you move, if you go through Einstein's laws of relativity, the faster you move, time changes, and we know this. The faster you're going, the time moves slower and slower as the faster and faster you move, right? And also time moves slower the slower you move. If you get down to a black hole, right? If you eliminate, the more you're falling into a singularity, right? So I did say this it was last week or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember, but I was learning about gravity, and I thought it was an interesting way to think about it, because we think of, like, right now where you feel pressure somewhere. It's either on, for me, it's on my back end and my legs as I'm sitting in a chair. I feel being pulled down, right? But the concept of being pulled down, that feeling that I have, or if you're standing up right now, you have it in your feet. What's actually happening is you are feeling yourself falling to the center of the earth. You're just being stopped by the chair or the ground. It's a falling feeling that you're feeling. So almost like if you're in a car and you accelerate and you get pushed back into the seat, that is the feeling of acceleration, right? That's that on velocity. That's what you're feeling there. You don't feel speed, right? Because if you just drive at 60 miles per hour, you don't get pushed back into your seat anymore. You only feel the change of speed, not actual speed. That's why we're flying around the earth, the sun at, I forget what speed we're going at, but it's incredibly fast. So the concept of what you're feeling, what I feel on my legs and my butt right now is just the chair stopping me from it's just like velocity but down. So, and it's just a constant because we're constantly falling towards the earth, which is bending, curving space-time with its mass. And if it was a black hole, you would just fall because there's nothing there to stop you. You would just fall into the center of the black hole, which would squash you down to nothing, to a point, to an infinitely small point, which is crazy to think about. All these things are, but when you think about this stuff, it doesn't make sense to our minds because our minds evolved to not deal with these things. You know, how do you comprehend that one of these stars is that there's a galaxy out there that's 2.5 million light years away, and each light year is 5.88 trillion miles. Like how does that even compute in a head that lives on a planet that doesn't have to deal with these numbers, right? we don't walk around our daily lives having to worry about trillions of miles. So it is an opportunity to kind of think about something that's a little off the wall, right? All right, I'm rambling now. I'm going to play a little bit of Neil deGrasse Tyson real fast here on Star Talk, and just to kind of fool around a little bit with this this concept of, if you haven't heard of the Andromeda paradox, it's an interesting one that I just learned about, and it just kind of talks again more about why time isn't real. It's just a kind of an illusion. So this is just 5 minutes. We're going to play it real quick and explain the Andromeda paradox, then dive into a little bit more. All right. So before he goes into what he's going to say, so the measuring of gravitational waves. They're actually mentioned this in this video, but so they know gravitational waves exist because they finally got a measurement of it, and the measurement of it was two supermassive black holes that have collided with each other, and it sent out a gravitational wave. Now, to understand a supermassive black hole, like just about every galaxy, I won't say every galaxy, but just about every galaxy has a supermassive black hole in the center of it. The supermassive black hole in our galaxy, again, I like to put things in perspective. So our sun, you can fit close to 2 million Earths into our sun, right? So if you want to put that into perspective, right? This is why we're trapped in the gravitational pull of our sun, because our sun is massive compared to Earth. And so 2 million, you could fit 100 Earths side by side going across the diameter, and you could do that across the diameter, across the x-axis, across the y-axis, and across the z-axis. And then, so if you take 100 cubed, that's 1 million, and then the sun's actually bigger than that, so you could do more. I was just rounding it, and so it comes out to like 1.6 million Earths, somewhere in that range, depending on where you want to call the edge of the sun. But what was I looking up? Oh, size of the supermassive black hole, right? Size of Milky Way black hole, which I think is called Sagittarius A. Let me see. Yes, it is. Ooh, look at me. I'm learning stuff. So the black hole in the center of the Milky Way, Sagittarius A, has a mass of approximately 4 million times the mass of our sun. Okay, so you take our sun, which you could put over a million and a half Earths in, and now you can take 4 million of our suns, and that goes into the size of the black hole, the tiny black hole. Our black hole isn't even a supermassive black hole. The tiny black hole in the middle of our Milky Way galaxy, right? So I don't know. Anyway, I don't know how I got on this whole. I'm just into black holes right now. So, oh right, gravitational waves, measuring gravitational waves. That's what I was getting to. So these two supermassive black holes way out somewhere collided, and they were able to measure the gravitational wave. This is how they proved that gravitational waves exist. The way they got this is, and I think they're going to say it in this little video here. This video is only 5 minutes. I'm already interrupting it. Is they have a laser beam. I think it's in, I want to say it's in Oregon. And it's a 2.5 mile like laser beam, right? And the laser, like it's laser on one side and it hits a mirror and then it goes back the other way. And they were able to, it was like something like a less than a millimeter jiggle of this laser that's 2 miles long that they were able to detect this gravitational, like, so even though these giant supermassive black holes collided and sent this massive wave, gravitational wave through space-time, you know, that's how much it really affected us on that level. So this is what they're talking about with this question here, as far as this goes. All right, here we go. So this is some craziness, right? So they're saying that because one person is standing looking up at the Andromeda galaxy and another person is running, right? And they come right to where you are, like you're lined up and you're both looking in the sky at the Andromeda galaxy. Because one person is running and the other person is standing still, the person that's running sees the Andromeda galaxy 12 days later, if I remember the math. I can't remember if it's later or earlier, but 12 days difference than the person who's standing still. And this seems ridiculous, right? But I have a video that's going to explain it a little bit better. But again, these are the paradoxes of the place that we live in. These are the things that we don't really think about. And so if this is true, which it is, which, you know, we'll go into more about this and the reason why it's a paradox, it's like, so what is this thing that we are calling time? Like, what is actual now? Like we always say that the past doesn't exist and the future doesn't exist, but what is actually now? Like, when does the past turn into the future? What is this mystical thing? And if there's things traveling around the universe, that time doesn't exist for them at all. Time is completely stopped for them, like, for example, light rays, then is there a constant now? Is there a constant a thing out there where everything is at the same time? We got a message, so let's play it.
Okay, I'm gonna leave another message. I guess the first message didn't go through. Maddie, how you doing today?
Doing
for
wonderful.
This Sunday, DC Black Cats from out here on the streets of Stereo. For this Sunday, I always say it again and again. You made it, but somebody else did not wake up today, fortunately. I'm out here in Missouri, headed down to Oklahoma
Okay.
City. I hope you're having a great, wonderful Sunday. Hope you had a great, wonderful weekend. I'm sure you did, Maddie. I've got a question though. Hopefully you can answer it. The black hole. I was always wondering about that black hole. How deep is that black hole? Is there any light in that black hole? And also, is it just dark? Have anybody been in that black hole? If they have, how deep is it? Far have they been down in the black hole? And yeah, so hopefully you can answer that, Maddie. If not, then maybe somebody can answer it.
So thank you for the question. I love talking about black holes, by the way. So as far as a black hole goes, what it is so no, the reason why we call it a black hole is because how can I explain it? All right, here's the best way to go about it. And by the way, I did a whole episode of Cosmic Matters. I do this every Sunday from 10 to 12. You can check out some of my older ones. And I did a whole episode on black holes, episode 3. You can check them out on Spotify, or you can check them out on my YouTube channel, Philosophy Man 76, or on my TikTok, which is Philosophy Man 76. But let's to understand the black hole and to answer the question as best I can, by the way, because even physicists and people a lot smarter than me don't understand black holes. So I'm not going to try to pretend that I have some kind of special knowledge, but I can relay what I've learned so far. So in order to escape, right, think of things with mass, and think of space as like a trampoline, all right? But a trampoline that's not very tight, all right? And so as you put heavier things onto the trampoline, it pushes down, right? It pulls, if the trampoline is space-time, it pulls space-time down, right? And then what would happen is, what actual orbits are, is as that thing pulls down and you're trapped in the circle, right, in the orbit of something, you don't fall straight down, because what happens is you're just traveling in a circle fast enough, right? Let me back up and explain that. So you take a ball and you drop it and it goes straight down to the earth. That's gravity. You take the same ball and you throw it a little bit. You throw it 10 feet in front of you. So now it goes forward before it drops down, and it drops down eventually, but it takes a longer time for it to get down because it's got speed component to it, right? Now, if you took a gun and fired it, the bullet is going to go farther because it's going faster, but eventually it'll fall to the ground, right? Now, if you could somehow create like a cannon or something or a gun that could shoot something so fast that it would go all the way around the planet and hit you in the back of the head, gravity's still pulling on it, but because it's traveling so fast, it hasn't fallen to the ground yet. That's what orbiting is. That's what the moon is doing. It's just traveling around super, super fast, right? So gravity, so it's just stuck in the circle, right? If you think of a bowling ball and a trampoline that was kind of loose, it's just traveling around it, and that indentation that it makes. Now, when you're talking about a black hole has so much mass that, okay, escape velocity, that's what I wanted to get to. So we know in order to leave Earth, you have to travel at a certain speed. The way to get out of the gravitation of anything is you have to go fast enough. So what is it's called escape velocity. So what is the escape velocity of Earth? I think it's something like, I know there's an 8 in there somewhere. 8, how fast do you have to go? 11 kilometers per second, which is about 25,000 miles per second. Okay. So that is the escape velocity of Earth. So when you see like a spaceship take off, or, those Mars SpaceX rockets, it's got to get to that speed or it can't escape the Earth's gravitational pull. But once you pass 25,000 miles per second, you can now escape Earth's gravity. Right now, if you want to escape the sun, you have to go escape velocity of sun in miles per hour. So I'm assuming we're all talking about, we're all in America right now. What would be the escape velocity of the sun in miles per hour? Doesn't tell me. Anyway, it's a lot faster, right? So let's just put it that way. It's telling me like, it just keeps giving me the Earth. Why doesn't it give me the sun? In miles per hour. Come on. Escape velocity of the sun is about, it says 617 kilometers per second. Oh, there you go. 1.4 million miles per hour is how fast you have to go. That's the escape velocity of the sun. Okay. Because it's much bigger. So you could put over 1.5 million Earths into the sun. Right. So it's 25,000 miles per hour to get away from the Earth. It's 1.4 million miles per hour to escape the sun. Now, why? Because so much mass. So now let's talk about a black hole. With a black hole, the reason why it's called a black hole is because it's got so much mass, right? That even this light can't get out of the escape velocity. The escape velocity of a black hole is faster than the speed of light. So even though light can try to get out of it, it just can't. It's even light is pulled into because of the gravity, because of how much mass there is, and gravity just pulls it. It just beats the light, so we can't see in it. So, do we know if anyone's been inside a black hole? Not any human. No one, nothing can escape it. Now, I have a whole another theory about every black hole. It's not a theory; it's a hypothesis, but it's one that I like a lot, and it's what I did that whole episode 3 on. That I think every black hole is the center, is the Big Bang of another universe. I think all black holes in our universe have universes in them, and I think our universe is a black hole in a different universe. But that is a larger topic as far as that goes, and it will take a little bit longer than a couple of minutes to explain. But hopefully that explained why light can't escape a black hole, and it made it a little bit more clear. I know I'm not as clear and good at explaining these things as some other people, but let's see. I think you left a message, so
I guess okay, my message got cut off about the black hole. I don't know if I said how deep is that black hole. I want to just find out, have humans ever been down in that black hole, and where did that black hole leads to? Exactly. And where did the black hole come from? What's the purpose of this black hole? Why they call it the black hole? Not white hole, but they call it the black hole. Not the brown hole, but they call it the black hole. Not the red hole, but they call it not the blue hole.
Right.
Just
it's
a black hole. Because it's dark, or what? Or does it have light down in there somewhere? And what's living down in the black hole? Anything in living, any life is in there in that black hole. But Maddie, you have a great day. I'm rolling though, paying attention to the road. I've been down there listening for a while and rolling, taking care of the things while I'm driving.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I think I probably answered your question with my explanation. So that's why it's called a black hole. It's just because nothing can escape the mass of a black hole. And as far as like how far down does it go? Down is a interesting concept because what is down in the confines of space? There's no up or down in space. It's just a hole. It's a three-dimensional hole. Let's just put it that way, right? It's a three-dimensional gravitational spot in the universe, right? So it's the best way I can try to explain it, because it's not a hole like in the ground. It's just pulling, like when you see a picture of a black hole, like if you saw Interstellar, what you're actually seeing is the accretion disk, all the stuff that's outside of the event horizon of the black hole. But once you pass the event horizon, you're going to the middle of the black hole. And what also is kind of interesting is that you go to the middle of the black hole instantly, but for you, it doesn't. Time changes. This is the whole concept of time is an illusion, because once you pass the event horizon of a black hole, time for you would feel like it's moving the same, but it's stopped. But if you were observing you from outside of the black hole, you instantly are gone, right? Because time has changed. The warping of time and space has changed. So it's a complete weird thing, right? I don't know how to explain it other than that. And so the concept is, if all these things are going on, what are we talking about as far as time goes? Because if we think about our own lives, this is what I was thinking about this morning, is we understand the concept of what it is to be us right now, right? Like, we are very aware of how we feel, what we're doing, like, how it is right now. But think back 5 minutes ago. How did you feel? It doesn't feel like anything. Like, even if you can remember where you were, the memories are it doesn't feel like now, like the what we have this illusion of now. And the further back we go, we don't remember really anything. Even though we have memories, but they're vague. They're not real. And there's this. They're just these. Like, I understand, like, my experience, like growing up with my sister, right? I don't spend as much time with her now, so I remember our bond was much closer then. I remember kind of what it felt like, as my sister. Now I see her, and I still love my sister, but I don't have the same bond. It doesn't feel the same because I don't see her all the time. But did that bond even exist then? Because it doesn't exist now. Like, how is anything that existed then? How do I prove it even did exist? All I know is what's going on now. And then in the concept of this Andromeda galaxy thing that we talked about, does now even exist, right? That's why we have all these paradoxes, these weird things. Zeno, I always talk about Zeno's paradoxes. They're my favorite ones, because he actually was someone who was a proponent of time not existing, right? And he proved it through a bunch of different mathematical things. The easiest one is he has Achilles and the tortoise, right? And but that one's a little bit harder to explain. I'm just going to use the paradox of the midpoint because it's the easiest one to explain. And the paradox of the midpoint is simply, in order for us to go from point A to point B, we'd have to go through a midpoint C, right? That's just the way math works, right? So in order to go from A to B, we have to go through C. But in order to go through A to C, we'd have to go through a midpoint D, right? There's got to be a midpoint between those 2 points. And to go to A to D, there's a midpoint between that of E. And between A and E, there's another midpoint. And there's an infinite number of midpoints that you would have to go through in order to move anywhere at all. So mathematically, you shouldn't be able to move anywhere. Like time, you shouldn't. And then if you mathematically can't move anywhere, then there is no time, right? Because if there is no space, there is no time. Time is just a measurement of change, right? Whether it's distance or whatever. But if everything is in one spot and nothing ever changes, then there's no time. There's no need for time. There's no measurement of time, right? So Zeno was trying to prove that everything was an illusion, and I looked back at this and I said, I'm starting to believe that Zeno knew what he was talking about back in the 1500s, 16. I don't know when he was 1400s. When did Zeno live? I don't know when he lived, but the more I look into, as I look into these physics and these paradoxes that exist, like the Andromeda paradox we were just talking about. Actually, I'm going to play the rest of this video so we can get the end of it. The more I'm like, there's something going on. There's a game that's going on that's being played on us, and the universe is enjoying a chuckle at our expense. So let me play the rest of this video. Finish it up. It's only 5 minutes, but we're only 2 minutes in. Let me move back up. Move back a little bit for those who just joined. All right, here we go. I'm talking about the Andromeda paradox. Oh, geez. Wow. I was completely off. Um, so yeah. So what he was alluding to there. So even with those supermassive black holes colliding and sending out a gravitational wave, he just said it jiggled the experiment because what they were using was a light beam. They were using a laser beam, excuse me, and over a mile long, and it moved the laser beam to detect the gravitational wave. What do you say, 1/20th of a proton? That's ridiculous, right? So that's the kind of measurement. So we have these feelings of time, and it takes a lot to distort them. But we're in a universe where a lot of things happen. There was another message here, so let me play that one.
One more thing, man.
One more thing.
So, what year, in calendar year, or biblical time, did that black hole came? And exactly where is the black hole, and why is the black hole where it's at? What was the purpose of that black hole? It could have been anywhere else, but it's just there at this particular spot. But hopefully you can answer that. If not, then I'm listening, and maybe somebody that's listening can answer it, or maybe somebody else somewhere can answer it. I just, I'm very intrigued into this kind of stuff. This is my type of tea, man. But keep it going, man. I'm rolling. BC, Black Casper.
All right, I appreciate the questions. I want to do more Q&A and have guests. That's why I got stereo going during this. But as far as where the black holes are, so what a black, or why does it show up? So they don't really know all of the reasons. What happens with the black holes that they think that have formed, and where they've formed, like they formed in the center of galaxies, mainly because the amount of mass collapsing, if it collapses past the electromagnetic repulsion of the atoms, then it will go down to a black hole. So what do I mean by that? We don't actually touch anything, right? So like when we say like, oh, I'm touching this table, or I'm touching my face or whatever, nothing ever touches. What actually happens is the polarity of the atoms in your skin, right, repels against the polarity of the atoms on the table, right? And they push like two magnets that if you try to push them, the two norths together, they would repel each other a little bit, right? And so our neurons have evolved to feel that, to take that repulsion, right, and create a signal that goes to our brain, that our brain interprets as touch, right? Like that's how it goes. Hey, what's up, Lady Boss? I like the new avatar. So that electromagnetic repulsion is when a star collapses, or when something massive, like on the size of a level of a galaxy, collapses. Now, like our star, for example, isn't massive enough to turn into a black hole, at least based upon the calculations that they've done. They think what's going to happen is when our star is at its end of its life, it's going to expand. It's going to swallow the orbits of Mercury, Venus, and Earth. I don't think it's going to go to Mars. I think it's just those three. But we got about 5 million years before this happens. And then it will collapse back down. But it will collapse down into a dwarf star, right? Because what happens is, because there won't be enough mass, and it won't be collapsing fast enough, when it gets to a certain level, even though all the fuel, the reason why stars exist is because gravity was pulling the mass together, and the mass ignited, and so this is what created the nuclear fusion that creates the sun. But eventually the sun will emit all of its nuclear energy, right? All the energy that it has, and that's when it will expand and then collapse. Now, if it collapses fast enough past even the powers of electromagnetic repulsion, then it will continue collapsing down into a black hole, right? That is how they form, from what I have learned from people much smarter than me. So as far as that goes, I'm sure Lady Boss has something interesting to say.
Hey, Maddie, what's going on? You're having a good day. I just woke up, so I'm listening.
Hello. We are talking about time as an illusion. We're talking about black holes, which is great. I love the fact that I got some questions about the black holes, because it makes me again have to dive back in to talk about them. And what black holes have done is they've forced us to even look at our interpretations of the universe, and have to actually deal with the fact that they exist. Like, it would be great if they didn't exist, but they do, and things get so wonky at that level. This is why quantum mechanics has become important. This is because what we call Newtonian physics and general relativity, once they come into contact with quantum, with basically quantum physics, the two, this is where they have to match up. This is where, because things that happen in the quantum realm or in quantum science they don't make sense, right? So like two things could be at the same place at the same time. This logically we say that this, like even this Andromeda galaxy, paradox, we just call them paradoxes because we don't understand them. It doesn't make sense because we don't exist on a quantum level. So all of our logic, all of the things that we make sense to us, because we've evolved over a couple of million years in the level of magnification of the universe that we exist in. But as far as the level of magnification when you're talking about quantum realm and what's going on a atomic level, it's just crazy, right? So to understand what, again, I like to put things in perspective. There are supposedly, based upon mathematics done, there's about 2 trillion galaxies in our universe, right? 2 trillion, by the way, 2 trillion galaxies means that there are galaxies with anywhere from 100 million to a billion stars in each one of those 2 trillion galaxies, right? So there's a lot of stuff out there. And we were just talking about the Andromeda galaxy, which is 2.5 million light years away from our galaxy. And and again, one light year is 5.88 trillion miles. So again, we're talking huge, massive scales of space and time, things that dwarf our understanding of how of our everyday reality, right? So it's very hard to put these concepts into words, into our minds, because we don't deal with these types of things. But even as big as that is, right? Like if you thought about there's more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on planet Earth, right? And I actually looked that up, and that's actually wrong. It's actually, well, it's not wrong. It's just not total. It's not fully correct. But there's actually 10,000 stars in our universe for every grain of sand on planet Earth. So next time you go to the beach, you just pick up, a handful of sand and imagine every grain of sand that falls through your hand is 10,000 stars when you're putting it on a universal scale, right? And then look around the rest of the beach and then think of all the beaches that exist on planet Earth, right? That's what we're talking about as far as number of stars that exist, right? So we have to constantly put these things in perspective. So now that you've thought about all that and how many stars there actually are, in a glass of water, there are more molecules of water than there are stars in the universe in a glass of water, right? So when you're talking about things at the atomic level, that's how small things can get as well. Because I'm talking about the big, and then I'm also talking about the small. And if you want to go down to the small and you go to the atomic level, it's even crazier there how small things are. And so there's this scale that's just immeasurable and incomprehensible to our brains, and that we're living in. And the ideas of these things are what causes these paradoxes that our brains can't wrap our heads around, because it's just not how we evolved. Maybe in order to understand these things on a better level, there's something has to evolve in 4-dimensional space-time, in order to really get these concepts. Maybe our brains just aren't going to be capable of, because we don't need to. Why do we need to do these things? Why would we need to understand the concepts of trillions of miles? We can survive without this information. That's just why, when we think about it, it's mind-boggling to us. So do I got more time? Yeah, I got another minute of this video, so let's just play the end of it. The gravitational waveinator. So I want to, I have another video just explaining this paradox again. It's a short one. It's only 3 minutes. I try to keep everything short here. But this concept of the Andromeda paradox. So again, just for those of you who weren't here a little while ago, how this thing works is one person is standing still looking at the Andromeda galaxy, which is very, very far away in our relative terms, right? So one person is standing there looking at it. Another person is running. And they, at the moment that they hit the same, just about right next to you, if you both looked at the Andromeda galaxy at the same time, the person running is seeing the Andromeda galaxy 12 days earlier than you are seeing the Andromeda galaxy. And the idea is why? Why is that? And it's because of this paradox of, I don't know why my computer's so slow. Probably because I'm running like 16 different apps all at the same time. That might be the reason. All right, let's see if we can explain this one more time. Oh, I just realized you guys are all watching this on the. All right, here we go. This is a 3-minute video about this same paradox again. All right, I'll try not to interrupt it. Well, I'm not going to. I'm definitely going to interrupt it, but I'll try to let it go. All right, so it's a 3-minute, another explanation of the Andromeda paradox. So this is kind of cool. So when you're moving, so this happens by this concept of when you're moving, time slows down. The faster you move, the slower time goes. And this happens even with our clocks. So with our clocks that we have on our phones right now, this is how they do GPS, this is how they do your clocks, is when it's bouncing off of a satellite, right? That's a satellite that's in the sky that's orbiting Earth. So if it's orbiting Earth, that means it has to be moving faster than 25,000 miles per hour, right? The escape velocity of Earth, right? So it's moving extremely fast around the Earth. And so what happens is the satellite's time is going slower than you because you're not orbiting the Earth. You're going around the speed of the Earth, but you're not traveling at the same speed as the satellite that's moving 25,000 miles per hour faster than you're going. So they actually have put that time dilation into the equation to make sure that because then what would happen is our clocks would constantly be slowing down because we're getting the information from a satellite that's moving so fast. Their time on a satellite is going slower than the time on planet Earth. And this makes sense to me now. And now that I'm actually saying it out loud. So this is why they actually have to, so they have to calculate that and speed up the time that comes down from a satellite that shows you your time that you're seeing on your phone as we're talking. All right. So let's finish up this, got a minute left of this video, the Andromeda paradox. These. So cool. Let me not start the next video. So yeah, so it's like, oh, come on. I'm trying to pause it. There we go. So the idea here is the time doesn't really exist. It's another construct that we use, just like we use language, just like we use math, just like we use words. Well, words are language, right? Oh, I haven't had my light on the entire time. I'm sitting here in the dark. Oh, so so the whole point of this is to get back to the concept that what is really going on, like the whole idea of life is just the universe looking at itself in a way, and just making up a story, right? It's just it's let's just have this fun experience of being a finite thing that thinks these things called time and nouns and things and all this stuff exists, and it really doesn't. So every time I dive into the science part of this stuff, none of these things really exist. Whatever it is, whether it's time, whether it's space, whether it's language, whether it's individual people or things, like it's all, whenever we dive in and really try to get an explanation of what things are, we find out that it's all fluid. It's all nothing. It's like trying to figure out like what makes up an atom. Okay, well, what makes up a molecule? Oh, it's atoms. What makes up atoms? Oh, protons and electrons. All right, what makes up the protons, the nucleus and the electrons? Oh, the quarks. All right, well, what makes up the quarks? Eventually you're going to get down to nothing, zero. And so when people say, oh, something can't come from nothing, I go, everything comes from nothing. Everything. The sounds that you're hearing right now are coming out of nothing. You might say they're coming out of my mouth, but for you in your head, there's nothing, and then now sound has come out of it. And the differences in the vibrations of the sound, or the sound waves that are hitting your eardrums, the spaces in between the words are just as important as the words, and just important as because if there were no vibrations, there were no spaces in between, then you would just hear you just hear one long sound, right? So just as if it was silent. There's no difference between the two. There's no difference between silence and a long steady sound that doesn't change. You need the vibrations, you need the differences, you need the space, right? So in order for there to be something, there has to be nothing. Both of these things have to exist, and at the same time they come into existence at the same time. So it's not something coming from nothing, it's something and nothing come into existence at the same time. Everything that you think exists comes out of nothing. So I think that's probably a good way to end, right? As far as that goes. So because it is getting to 11:30, and I did the experiment of being on stereo today. Hopefully the experimental people listening on stereo liked it. I do this I do this for about an hour and a half every Sunday, 10 o'clock. We do Cosmic Matters. Next week I'll think of something else to talk about. We probably will play a little bit more philosophical stuff because we've been in the space stuff. Or I might want to talk about, if anybody wants to chat about this interstellar object that's coming. Oh, shoot. I can't do it again to her. Sorry. I have to do Astro Alexandra. Oh, my computer is just shot actually, so I'm not going to do it. Unfortunately, we'll start next podcast talking about Astra. Oh, now my computer's broken. I like to do a little segment about Astro Alexandra every week if I can, but it seems like I have overused my computer's capacity to come up with more stuff because we have stereo, we're on TikTok, and we're on YouTube Live right now. And I'm trying to do YouTube Premium. Probably should close some windows. But anyway, the point being is to do this every Sunday. Love to talk about science, talk about space, and talk about philosophy. So we'll do some more. I think we're going to do more. We're going to do an Alan Watts next week and tie this all in, because the philosophy side of it and the science side of it has to match up in order for us to say it's real. And it's real interesting as far as I'm concerned. And obviously, hopefully a couple people found it interesting as well as we talk about this. So that is it. That's episode 8 of Cosmic Matters. Hopefully we got a little entertainment for our brain out of today. And we'll be back next Sunday to chat some more. So thank you for being here, and I will talk to you all soon. And